whenever someone starts a sentence with, this is going to be horrible, it's like when someone says, I'm not a racist, but N-word for black person. I'm not a homophobe, but F-word for gay person. I'm not a sexist, but C-word for woman. That's what this is. He absolutely is saying the president doesn't love America. And as Alex pointed out, the president's speech that we all remember, he said, only in America could my story be possible. In every speech. Barack Obama is a walking endorsement for what the United States of America is. And this is just another example of the unprecedented disrespect that this president has gotten.
I guess Stephanie Miller wasn't around, or maybe she was otherwise occupied when the left tore apart George W. Bush. I'm not just talking about the people in the protests in the streets over the war. Bush is a murderer, kill Bush, pictures with Bush through the crosshairs and blood dripping down his face, or when they made the movie about him, and in the movie it ran on cable, he was killed in that movie, etc., etc. I'm talking about elected officials calling him all kinds of names. I'm talking about lunatics like Keith Olbermann, in my opinion, calling him the worst, most horrific names. Yeah, this is unprecedented what Obama's going through. And it's like, and what Rudy did is like calling someone the C word or the H word, or saying F the HP. Are you crazy, Stephanie? I mean, really, are you out of your mind? Joining us now is Conn Caroll, White House correspondent for townhall.com. Hi, Conn. Sorry to get overly emotional at the beginning of our little chat, but I mean, first of all, the reaction by the left to the remarks of, albeit he's Rudy Giuliani, but he's a private citizen, you know?
Yeah, no, the guy's been out of office for over a decade. He left, people forget this, at the end of 2001. He hasn't run for anything in over 5 years, not since 2012. So this is a guy who's been out of office. He's a private citizen. This was a dinner where he gave his own remarks. There's no reason any Republican should have to answer to what Giuliani said.
Right, and unfortunately, Rudy backed off today, saying, "Oh, Obama's story is a great American success story. My remarks might have been misconstrued," which is, it's sad to me. I mean, when will Republicans, just stick to their guns and instead of drawing back, say, hey, wait a minute. How did he sit in that church for 20 years? How did he get married by the man who said GD America? How did he start his career in the living room of a domestic terrorist who lit bombs in this country? And how did his wife, when he was running, say America's a downright mean nation? Instead, it's like, sorry, I made a mistake. I'm so sick of that.
No, perhaps I'm naive. I take people at their word. When Obama says he's a Christian, that's fine with me. But who converted him to Christianity? Who baptized him? That would be Reverend Wright. And if the media is going to condemn, Scott Walker for not immediately standing up and walking out when Rudy Giuliani said something impolite, what about criticizing Obama for sitting in the pew for 20 years in front of this man saying "Goddamn America"? Yeah,
well, that's a darn good question. That's a GD good question, I'll tell you that. All right, let's also talk about this, your piece on Obama's midnight basketball counterterrorism strategy, which is a great analogy to make because it is exactly that.
No, absolutely. He gave that interview to Vox in that same week where he talked about managing terrorism the same way a big city mayor manages crime, and that's the way he looks at it. He feels as though as long as we have enough community organizers going into communities throughout the nation and setting up youth programming, which is what he's talking about here, that we'll be able to stop people from joining ISIS, we'll be able to stop people from joining terrorism. And it's exactly Bill Clinton's strategy for stopping crime in the 90s. It's midnight basketball all over again.
It really is. And again, we've discussed this earlier in the show with other guests, but I got to ask you, Conn, the FBI director not only wasn't there, he wasn't invited to come to this terror summit because they didn't want to give the impression that law enforcement would have too big a role in combating terror. That's how insane it's all become. Well,
the terrorism summit was all kabuki theater anyways. It was completely for show. Nothing of substance went on. How Obama wants to stage manage just his own kabuki theater is fine with me. Asked at the press briefing, I was there, Ernest said the reason why the FBI director wasn't invited is because his boss, Eric Holder, was. Which makes a certain amount of sense. But, for me, considering that the summit was just all pointless show anyways, it doesn't really matter who showed up or who was there.
No, obviously, but to actually say, as Johnson said, the reason that he wasn't invited was because we didn't want to make it look like law enforcement would play such a major role in combating terror is just, I mean, hey, at least they're being honest. But you're right. It was a show. It was a dog and pony show. And if anything, it scared the dickens out of me. And it should have scared the dickens out of Americans to see that this is how they're going to go about fighting the scourge of terrorism. Still won't call it what it is. Hey, always great to talk to you, folks. Read Conn Caroll at townhall.com. Speak to you soon, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem.
All right, folks. Up next, senior editor of Commentary Magazine, Jonathan Tobin. And we'll be talking about the IAEA report on Iran and Mosul and Obama's phony war on ISIS.